are beginning to see the gains, what we call Tinubu gains. Hundreds of bandits are killed today, every day. Tinubu gains. You move everywhere in our own country today, free of fear. Tinubu gains. Things are changing. These so-called Lakurawa, or whatever you call them, they are making a mistake. Nobody ever dares Tinubu and win. Nobody. They have come at a wrong time. Nobody has ever defeated Tinubu. And you are going to be defeated. And we'll kick you out of Nigeria, one after the other. Things will change in our country. And it's already changing. Many parts of our country today is living in peace. Go to the Niger Delta. Things have changed. Today, we have gotten to 1.8 million barrels of crude oil. We have not seen this for a long, long time. Tinubu gains. Beginning little by little, this welfare to the rich is stopping, is coming to an end in Nigeria. Special things going to the very rich, no more. Central bank is clean. Nobody is making one dime in our central bank, unlike up to 2023. Tinubu gains. And the Naira will be stabilized. It will be stabilized. Tinubu gains. And it's happening all over. We are just 1 year, 7 months. Let them wait and see 2025. It will happen. We will secure this country. We will fix it.
Okay, welcome back. Mr. Michael Joffo joins us here this morning, the former director with the State Security Service. That was good morning, and thank you for coming on today. Well, the NSA there was talking about they will secure the country, given assurances that things are moving in the right direction. They've got the cooperation of all of them, heads of security agencies working together, and it raises a lot of questions severally. And not long ago, the army had spoken of about a new terror group, which they say they are spotted along that Sokoto-Kebbi axis. They were calling for all sorts of cooperation from the locals there. But from your perspective, what is your thinking about this narrative, about this Lakurawa terrorist group?
Well, first of all, it is heartwarming to hear from the NSA that all the security agencies are working together, unlike before, because I had watched this the event. So it's heartwarming. If he can, on that point, see that they are working together, that means they are working together. But I also have some challenges, before I go to the issue of this new terrorist group. I recall that under President Goodluck Jonathan, they used to have this joint body that comprising all the security agencies, that will address Nigerians on what is going on. But we will have now the situation where the police say different thing, the defense, chief of defense staff, the Nigerian army, also in different things at the same time.
Even though they're working together?
Yeah, so there needs to be coordination, intense, because if you hear different things from the same different people, the people get confused. So, having said that, when I had my first reaction, when I heard that Lakurawa or Lakurawa, whatever it's called, it's a new terrorist group, I was taken aback because this group is not new in the terrain. It was initially formed by Nasara, the former Nigerian leader, as a vigilante or jihadist group, that was working with them. But at his death, the Nigerian government didn't take care of them, so they now scattered. And one of the district heads in Sokoto State invited Lakurawa. That was the man. So Lakurawa, the followers of Lakurawa, to help them, in preventing this cattle rustling and all these things with good intentions, not knowing that they also have some other inimical intentions to national security. And they started operating there, imposing taxes.
So they're not Nigerians?
They are not Nigerians. Imposing taxes. They all came from Niger, Mali, and which other country? All these neighboring countries, you know, they were there together. Now, having established their foothold in that place, and going beyond what they were asked to, you know, in terms of helping them in cattle rustling and all this. The Sokoto State government, I recall, in 2018, became worried and decided to negotiate with them to flush them out of the country. And some of them from Niger, from Mali and all this is left after the negotiation, leaving the Nigerian elements in Nigeria, the recalcitrant ones in Nigeria. And ever since, they've been operating on a very low, the security, the intelligence agencies were aware of the activities and they were following them.
Where were the security agencies when they were invited? Because, I mean, how could someone even invite them in the first place? Is it that security agencies saw that happen and decided to just, okay, look the other way, let it happen? Because if they had acted, many believe they should not be in the country at this point.
Yes, I agree. No. You see, I'm just trying to make a sequence, you know, because that time, after the negotiation with the Sokoto State government, I still recall, you know, there were attacks from these groups against some military formations and police formations, which led to a joint operation between the DSS, that was in 2018, between the DSS and the army, which now flushed them out of that place. But you know that having associated and gotten in contact with the locals, you cannot easily, but the activities, you cannot easily root them out, but the activities were brought under control until recently, you know, after the military took over. Some of them again joined their compatriots, but because of lack of this border control, you know, the multinational joint task force was no more effective as it was used to be, and that gave rise to the resurgence of the activities now that they are saying it is a new terrorist.
So basically, it's not new.
It's not new.
Well, I would say, you know, I mean, first, I think Chairman has already highlighted the fact that that came out in your explanation of this particular group, that it was as a result of our own failings, the failings of our own security agencies, unable to protect lives and property. That's why people reached out. I don't think that if they knew that they were going to turn against them or, you know, become another problem for them, do you think that the leaders we invited them in would have invited them in at that point?
You know, the fact is very difficult, you know, for us, because I don't want this issue of, you know, getting some ethnicity into it. This particular ethnic group cut across the West African sub-region, and they work in unity, the Fulanis precisely. So you recall, I think when the Bauchi State governor some time ago said that their brothers, they can be allowed in. And some of them also, government, even at a particular time, if you recall, did invite these people that they became. So it's not failure on part of the security, but I would say that, you know, because of that ethnic affiliation, the people want to work. And don't also forget that it's not just because of cattle rustling. They have all these religious ideology of pursuing jihad, you know, in all these particular areas. So that could account for the affinity, not knowing that it's now become inimical to national security. But I can tell you that the security and intelligence forces were aware of the activities and put them under control.
It's, you know, it's very worrying that, you know, because I guess that's part of the reason why people have been talking about state policing, you know, local policing. Because when people have affinity for things that are external, because, okay, we have relationship. I mean, relationship with other you know, ethnicities is not only peculiar to northern Nigeria. If you look at other parts of Nigeria that share borders with other neighboring countries, you will find that within the border region, a lot of them actually do share, you know, there's a strong affinity.
Southwest, where you have
Southwest,
all this Benin Republic.
Benin Republic, exactly. Those areas, even if you go to Adamawa, where it's in the north now, sharing border with Cameroon, people around that, the border area with Cameroon will also have affinity with those areas. Even in the south region, Akwa Ibom to Cameroon is also, you know, a very short distance.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering.
There's a difference.
Do you think that if we had like our own local policing system, people would actually still have this, will be looking outside, regardless of the affinity that they share with all of these other people?
That's a very important question you raised. You know, the difference between the affinity in the north and in the south, that most of these things are ideological, based on religion, pursuing of religious ideology. So that's the difference. But in other areas, you see intermarriages and all this relationship being extended to all this. Then coming to the second part of your question, which I have said times that number. As long as we continue in this country to gloss over looking at the demerits instead of the merits of state police, we continue to go around in circles. I can tell you that if the state police is established, and I don't know what brought it to a halt again, because the president did give assent to it that they should go ahead, the National Assembly, but for whatever reason, it has been slowed down. I can tell you that if you we create the state police, the people are aware of the environment. They are conversant with what is going on. If strangers coming close by in the Republic of Benin, if a stranger comes into a community, they will easily identify that this person is a new person. But a situation where you have lack of adequate manpower in terms of our security, to man our security challenges, the locals are not educated to the point of even assisting the security agency. It becomes a problem. So there's need for the creation of state police, no matter the merits or the disadvantages you have. I believe very strongly that the advantages far outweigh its disadvantages.
And now, you've also said that we are aware of this group. I mean, that as far back as 2018, almost 6 years, and we actually invited them in. You know, we invited in a log infested with.
No, the district heads, not we or the government.
Yeah, well, by we, I mean the district heads. They're Nigerians.
Yes.
So I'm using we collectively as Nigerians. You know, Nigerians invited them in. But I'm just wondering, that tag, terrorist group, were they officially known? Those particular group of people, were they officially known as a terrorist group when they were invited in by the traditional rulers?
No. That's the point I was trying to make initially. You know, these are religious ideologies, and they were also helping in preventing people of cattle rustling.
Indeed.
So they didn't know. I'm surprised, you know, that they were just easily classified
as a terrorist
group, even though they have some affiliations and links with the local and some of these terrorist organizations, international terrorist organizations within Niger and part of Nigeria. But their number, as at that time, you know, I wouldn't want to go into details. Their number is not anything to worry about, to have easily classified them terrorists, because I actually believe.
But is it by numerical strength?
Of course, yes.
Is it by numerical strength or by ideology?
ideology, people will be there to pursue the ideology. So but the locals that are being recruited is what I think our security agencies are concentrating on to frustrate them from recruiting the locals.
So from what you're saying now, the threat level posed by this group to the country is not so worrisome. But what about how widespread is their influence?
Yeah, in intelligence practice, you don't underestimate any threat.
Yeah.
You don't underestimate any threat. But what I'm saying is that the threat being posed by this group is not as alarming to the point that we should worry. But that is not also to say that we shouldn't bother about it. You know, the bandits that are well established and the Boko Haram. Presently, this group is stationed in about 2 local governments in Sokoto and possibly 1 or 2 again in Kebbi. So they are not widespread. So I think it's good for us now. We have an opportunity to deal decisively with them now and flush them out.
But Boko Haram too was not widespread at the time. It was a very little group before they grew. So in that context, should we not also be asking ourselves, how are they getting their supplies? How are they being funded? Are we able to trace that, do you think?
Of course. You know, these groups, they impose taxes, local taxes on the people.
Why local government people
you see, the advantage we have here now is that, granted that to some extent, that the issue of Boko Haram was mishandled, we have learned our lesson. So that is why we should not allow this one to grow to the extent of, you know, the Boko Haram, where we will now have so many fronts to contend with. We are contending with Boko Haram in the northeast. We are contending with bandits in the northwest, mass kidnapping. So I think the government, with intelligence, has the capacity to deal decisively with this issue before it escalates.
I am just a little curious when you talk about, how will I put it now, when you talk about the classification of terrorist groups, can you give us an inkling into how a group, because I would also imagine, you know, when you, first and foremost, let's deal with that question. How does a group, I mean, how does it escalate into being classified into as a terrorist organization?
Well, terrorism, first of all, is an attempt to overhaul the government or create fear and panic among members of the public. You know, why not dismissing because like I said, if you recall in 2018, they've been able to attack some police stations and military formations as far back as 2018. That is not going on because government took necessary action then to stop their further spread. Now, what I'm saying is that the question you are asking is how do you now classify them terrorists, or how do we make them not to grow to that extent? They have some affiliations, like I said, don't forget that I mentioned this Jamaatul Nasrul Islam. You know, they have affiliation with them. It's ideologically religious and ideologically based. So we cannot rule out the possibility of turning into a full-blown terrorist organization. That is why it is good that we know their location from security sources. You know their locations, you know their strength, you know their source of funds to deal with it now before they spread.
But you said they have jihadist ideology as well.
Yes.
So you also can suggest that that's an attempt to take over government at some point.
Yeah, like I said, they have some international affiliations. Don't forget that the person who formed the group is no more. Then the man, the Lakurawa, who is no more. So it is now that they don't have that clear, defined leadership, it becomes very easy to deal with.
Very easy.
It becomes easier, not very easy.
Okay.
It becomes easier to deal with.
So the question then will be, Do you think we have, or what measures, have you noticed any strategy that we're adopting to also deal with spreading their, containing their propaganda and then some of those ideologies that they are spreading? Because if you want to target that number, you never can tell who other people, how many other people have at least subscribed to the ideology, which may eventually spring up much later.
Yeah, one thing I can assure you of is that the State Security Service, for instance, even though the new leadership of the SSS doesn't want to make public what it's doing, I can tell you that the intelligence service, this SSS, is on top of the situation in conjunction with other security forces to deal with this matter. Because don't forget that these things are intelligence-driven. If you don't have sufficient intelligence, then you make mistakes. But I can assure you that the SSS is on top of the situation.
I'm just a little curious. I know I asked you this question earlier, why it is that the people didn't feel that they could reach our own security agencies. And you said it was a matter of affinity. People feel, they have a better relationship with their brothers or sisters, as the case might be, and so they prefer to call those kinds of people. However, someone will ask, where is the jealousy of our own security agencies? Because if you go to rural communities, very rural communities, they feel very far away from government. They feel very... but if our security agencies were aware, as far back as 2018, and realized that this particular group could potentially become a threat, there have to be questions as to where was their own jealousy in saying, look, this group, we don't want them here. Let them go back to where we're coming from. Whatever it is you need, we'll provide for you people here. There are big questions as to how it was that they could have known since 2018 and folded their arms until it became a threat, killing people. That's when we now begin to say, oh, they're a relatively new group. And, there are big questions around that particular
behavior. It is not as easy as we talk about it. If you look at all these places, you have a lot of ungoverned spaces.
It is true.
People where you don't have even communication, like GSM and all this, like people can easily reach the security agencies. These people operate with Turaya in such areas.
That's what I was asking. Who's funding them? They're being funded. It can't be just those taxes.
I've told you that the source of funding, they operate with sophisticated weapons. It's been identified. They have from the Sahel, from Libya and all this, have a lot of arms, in the hands of these people. They also raid communities, impose taxes, and
those communities are impoverished communities. And those taxes, are they enough to buy those weapons? Those sophisticated weapons?
Of course. Why not? And if you collect 1, 2, 3 from people. Don't also forget, like I told you, they have affiliations with some of these international terrorist organizations. So they could also be getting their arms. And there's a lot of inflow of arms.
Why are they not being... Because look, if people like us, if this inflow flows to us, they will be arrested. But these other people are operating with this thing freely.
If you recall what I told you earlier, why this is resurging now is because of the coup in Niger and all these areas, that the multinational, you recall that they refused. In fact, they went out of ECOWAS. So that led to some breakdown of communication between the multinational joint task force that would have prevented them from coming. That's why it does appear now that it's a new group that is coming.
Let me just bring in this, which is on the side. Do you think security agencies know or have any inkling that people always think that, look, why is it that if regular people, responsible people, if this arm, so to speak, flows into them now, they'll start raising an eyebrow. But several of these ragtag groups have free access to all of these arms and ammunition. But if regular people get it, then agencies are usually up in arms. But these guys hold these things freely. And it appears as though they're looking the other way.
That's why there are criminal elements. You have to investigate to find out where they are and But you can't.
Which most times takes like
for
forever.
for me now, or you can't just carry arms and
at this rate,
walk on the street. And you don't see them, those criminal elements, carrying this in the
but we see some headers with arms. People see them regularly. You see images, pictures. We see some of them.
You see, they thrive on propaganda.
Some
These
of them,
terrorists,
who
takes the photographs?
Some of this
who takes the videos?
Some of this is not propaganda. We have seen some of those.
Who takes the video?
It doesn't matter who takes the video.
They do it by
in
themselves.
Nigeria.
They do it by themselves as a means of propaganda to see that they have support and they can operate freely. They can't come out to confront the military or our security forces just like that.
So far so good. Are you impressed? Even though I haven't quite heard the response, I mean, about the jealousy of our security agencies, do they ever, wonder why people would prefer to go and call an outside group instead of, calling them and, seeing that sort of situation and not raising some objection with the people who have done that?
You see, when we saw all these things, don't forget that these security agencies are made up of Nigerians with their shortcomings in terms of underfunding, in terms of technical equipment. So it's like they have rules of engagement. But this criminal element, the terrorists, don't have rules of engagement. You can see everybody shouting. By the time you go, you hear it's the people violation of rights and all this. But when they operate, because they don't have rules of engagement, nobody talks about their atrocities, just like the way the security agencies are talking about.
Just some of these things, they need to do something, because people keep saying those who don't have rules of engagement, they don't have this, they don't have that, but they are doing things and disrupting systems of responsible people. And it appears as though it's going on, unchecked. People will feel, no, if they can have it, why can't I have it? But you don't want society to begin to think that way. That's why agencies need to do something real quick. But
I believe very strongly the government is doing something very strong, very urgently too.
We need to also see. Our concluding moments now with you. Just give us this, your last word. I know that there's supposed to be long-term goals to tackle terrorism. How do we ensure that this doesn't come up again? Do you think we'll have all those measures in place so that we don't have this kind of concern moving forward?
Yeah, moving forward, I think intelligence efforts should be intensified. Then the action agencies should move in based on intelligence provided. The communities need also to be mobilized, to know the difference between government efforts and the efforts of these deviants. Okay. And I think with that, we will definitely achieve success, but I believe the situation is under control.
All right, we'll leave it on that positive note. Michael Joffor is the former director with the State Security Service. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.